Hello and welcome back to the HorseTech Conference here at Dunboyne Castle Hotel in sunny Ireland today. My next speaker is Mark Strong. Mark is a world leader in the use of laser, therapeutic lasers. He has a beautiful product for horses, humans. I pulled my shoulder over the weekend. I was in between working and doing some gardening, and he's given me some lovely therapy, and it's really good. The back of the room there's opportunity to try these things. What I've asked Mark to do is come and give a masterclass in this, because I've talked to so many people who've been trained on the sort of drug industry, pharma-fueled way of curing things and treating things. And Mark's pioneering a very different approach, and it's adored by some really great equine vets, trainers, therapists, and he's also an incredibly eloquent speaker about this, so I should get off the stage and let him start, because he's only got an hour here. Thanks, Mark.
I should stop now. By the way, how's the pain?
Really
better.
And you could feel it. You could feel no heat, but
a little bit of tingling.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Great. Wonderful to hear. So, very delighted to be here at the HorseTech Conference, and a big thank you to everyone in the room. A lot of wonderful presentations, a lot of great technology here. That's all very exciting stuff. And a big hello to our live stream audience out there. I understand it's in the thousands now, so a big hello to the folks back home and all around the world. That's Multi-Radiance has been in this global arena now for quite some time, about 15 years, and we're delighted to be here today. To us, it's all about the science, because veterinarians and practitioners and trainers and owners all deserve a level of evidence that rises to the level of the gold standard. Anecdotes are a wonderful thing, case stories, case studies are a great thing, but if you have some peer-reviewed evidence to go with it, then that sets you apart from the rest of the crowd. So science and outcomes is what we're all about. And my global director position for human and veterinary is something I've enjoyed. I started with this company back in 2010, and it's just been fantastic to meet so many great dedicated practitioners around the world. Veterinarians have my utmost respect. They work very long hours. It's a very tough life, but they're deeply compassionate, and they have one abiding principle, and that is to benefit those that they can with all the means at their disposal, their eyes, their brains, their training, and especially their modalities. So I've been working, as I say, on this for 10 years now, and we went straight after the horse market because it was the most demanding. And if we could show that this technology worked on 1,500-pound athletes, these big horses, these big charging draft horses and eventers and show jumpers, if we could show that it worked really well on these large athletes, it was easier for veterinarians with companion animals and also doctors on the human side to realize there was plenty of power to work for them as well. So about the company, we're headquartered in Solon, Ohio. I met someone here earlier that was working with people in Cleveland, not so far from us. I happen to be out near Boulder, Colorado, a place I absolutely love. The sun here was a welcome thing. I thought I'd be facing rain, but the weather's been glorious here as well. So this represents two of our lasers. This was from the last World Equestrian Games in North Carolina. It was a bit like a bowl that filled up with water. We had Hurricane Florence there, so it got pretty exciting for a while. But the green wrapper you see on those lasers, those represent the vets, the attending vets at the World Equestrian Games, and we were the FEI approved laser there. And this was very significant because it had a level of efficacy, but also safety to permit it to be used in a public environment. Unlike a class 4, which has now been officially banned from being used at competitions because the level of hazard is so high. So what we're talking about is dealing down at the cellular level, some would say the quantum level, because these light photons, very analogous to plants, are striking chromophores in our bodies and being converted from light energy to chemical energy, in this case ATP, adenosine triphosphate, you remember from your high school biology, and a lot of other wonderful things here as well. But this is where light is working, down at the cellular level with our mitochondria, the energy factories. Multi-Radiance has been big on providing peer-reviewed evidence. As I mentioned, these are three of the pillars paper. The initial one was the blue paper on validation of the technology itself, and then a comparative paper, because you'd like to know, well, how does this compare to other lasers, the 3B and the class 4? And then the veterinary pillars paper is pretty much what it sounds like, the relevance for the veterinary community also. We're very, very delighted to have Dr. Ernesto Leal with us. He's our lead researcher. The university he works with in Brazil was very far-sighted. They started working with lasers over 10 years ago. Dr. Leal has been with us for 6 years. I was at the first conference where we where we first engaged with Dr. Leal, and I was impressed immediately by his energy, his sincerity, his commitment, his passion. I knew right away this is the kind of person we wanted to be working with us to develop this kind of objective evidence that we wanted for you. So corporate and clinical capabilities, this is a non-invasive way to relieve pain. It has no side effects, and this is really important. Many of the speakers earlier today were talking about the issues with horses and doping and abuse, and it's a wonderful thing to be able to tell you that this light has no side effects. It's incredibly beneficial, but you can't do any harm with our class 1 lasers, which are super pulsed, which I'll explain more in just a second. So 30 research projects, a lot of peer-reviewed evidence, 50 scientific papers, and the Revelations is our collection of the studies for the human side. In this document here, there are 21 different peer-reviewed studies that have now been published so that you have the confidence of knowing that this has been well demonstrated and gone through the gauntlet of peer review, which is not easy. They aren't looking to approve you, they're looking for ways to deny you. So photobiomodulation. It's funny for me to come over here because laser therapy is a very well accepted modality in the US and in many other countries, Australia, New Zealand. It was taken up very quickly over there because, well, they were more experiential. They wanted to just simply put it to work. Now, I have two types of people in my audience usually. There's the analytical who wants to see studies. And that's why we spent over $1 million to develop these peer-reviewed studies. But the other crowd says, let me just put this thing to work. And they head straight for the barn, or they go to their own animal, or they go to themselves, because after all, who doesn't have back pain? So they want to see how it works. And I have a couple in Virginia that's like that. It's a husband and wife team. She is the analytical. She loves to curl up with the study and read it. And he's the opposite. He'll actually go take that laser out to the barn and see for himself what's going on with the horses. Now, animals are wonderful because you don't have this placebo effect like you do with people. It either works or it doesn't. It's rather black and white, and that I love about this also. So low-level class 1 laser devices, this is very important because the research that's been going on now for the past 40 years is very clearly at low energy levels. High levels, now the demarcation for a class 4 is 500 milliwatts, and the reason it's designated as a class 4 is because of the potential for burning and thermally overloading the tissues. With a class 1, that's analogous or equivalent to over-the-counter safe. So in that case, you can take this laser, use it anywhere, and not worry about doing any harm. As a veterinarian, you can hand it to your tech, and as I'll tell you later on, you can even rent it to your clients. And this has been an incredible game changer because consistency of treatments is what really makes the difference in those soft tissue injuries like your suspensory ligaments, so that you have an area with very poor blood flow, and this is going to bring more blood, more oxygen, more nutrients into that area to speed up that healing. So super pulsing, what is super pulsing as compared to continuous wave? It's simply a very high speed burst of light, but very, very short durations, only 20 to 200 nanoseconds. This billionths of seconds is what eliminates the heat factor. With a continuous beam, you know, I have this in my pocket just in case I needed a pointer, but I'll take you all back to, you've all seen James Bond Goldfinger. Do you remember when James Bond is strapped onto the steel table, the laser's evaporating the steel between his legs, and he says, "What do you want me to do, talk?" And what did he say? "No, Mr. Bond, I want you to die." Okay? Well, that's the power of a class 4 laser. So this laser pointer gives you some idea, because even on a wall, that's why I brought two. Murphy's here. I'm in Ireland. So I just push this button and I can see this red dot on the screen. That's a highly collimated beam. That's the big deal there. That's a continuous beam, but with a super pulse laser, it's very, very fast, very short pulses, which makes it so incredibly safe. So here's the Pillars paper. This was a mechanism of action validation and a biphasic dose response. What does that mean? It means that at one dose, you start to kick in these benefits, but you want to follow the Arndt-Schultz curve because nothing goes ad infinitum with benefits. You're going to reach a plateau, and then you can start to have adverse effects. So we validated the dosimetry because this was critical as well. The class 4 world talks about joules, which is fine, except for a couple of factors. A joule is a measurement of light, a watt per centimeter squared at the surface. And as we'll see later on, that doesn't tell you anything about what's going on below the skin. And if you don't know the temperature below the skin, you have no way of knowing when you've overdone it and overheated that tissue. So the comparative Pillars paper was exactly as it says here. We compared this to class 3B and class 4. Again, those are just levels of hazard. But what we wanted to look at is how much photon energy you're getting below the skin. You can't talk about your benefits to muscles, ligaments, tendons, and bones unless you can talk about the amount of energy transiting through the collagen, through that skin, and down into those deeper tissues. And of course, with horses, pigmentation is a big deal as well. A darkly pigmented horse, it's going to absorb that light and that heat much faster. And so dark pigmented skin can be a real problem in human subjects as well. In some of the clinical studies, the humans have had to opt out simply because they were darkly pigmented and their skin heated up so quickly it became very uncomfortable for them. And you don't want to tell a 300-pound athlete, just sit still, damn it. No, bad idea. So, the creatine kinase is a measurement of muscle damage. We're looking at these biomarkers. We're using time to validate our dosimetry, not joules, because we want to look at what's happening above and below the skin surface. There's a magnetic field also that helps accelerate and sustain the effects of this ATP production. And it's a combination that's giving us incredible results even with deeper tissue structures like COPD. This has been used in horses, in people, and showing a big improvement in those symptoms. The thermal impact is also important, as I mentioned, about the skin pigmentation, and not being able to thermally overload tissues is a very big deal. You've all known about horses that kicked people, and that's their way of expressing to you that it's time to stop doing whatever you're doing. So now we talk about cryo, and this is important to come back to. The accepted regimen and conventional wisdom has been that ice is always the best way to follow exertion with horses. This has been true in the horse world, it's true with humans. After heavy exertion, come back and put ice on it. Until we found out, as the science continues to advance, this was another myth that could not be supported once we had the evidence to go with it. So here in this poster, and this is something I can share with all of you, these are the effects of using laser by itself as compared to using ice. And it was quite clear and definitive that PBMT alone was optimal for post-exercise recovery with improved maximum voluntary contraction. In other words, you are exercising that muscle to absolute exhaustion, and how long does it take you to recover? And it was fastest by the use of laser as opposed to ice. So prevention of muscle fatigue is a big deal. There are cytoprotective qualities to laser. The athletes, for them, it's extremely important to use this before an event and after an event. So are there applications being researched besides pain management, improved blood flow, and faster recovery from injuries? The answer is an absolute yes. We're doing work now in Duchenne muscular dystrophy, with multiple sclerosis, with transcranial applications. There were some mentions about this earlier with concussions. You know, cognitive function is being improved by the use of laser in traumatic brain injuries. And this is a really big deal because so many people have had a head trauma of one sort or another. And so to be able to improve the blood flow and to be able to improve the cognitive function to get people restored back to their former lives and their cognitive abilities is a huge factor for them. And no side effects. So we talked a little bit with other speakers today about the wearables market, and this is predicted to double by 2022. I hope you're seeing the full screen. Yes, good. So wearables is going to be a huge market for us because we're finding great results in eyes, macular degeneration. So the wearables market is pegged at $27 billion with 233 million unit sales by 2022. So photobiomodulation is used as a therapy to treat degenerative conditions in the retina or the optic nerve. Symptoms of stroke, Parkinson's. People are saying that's analogous to turning up a dimmer switch. Their husband or their wife is just more with it, more there. A gentleman who was not even able to take his dogs for a walk anymore, and after a few weeks of treatment was reporting back to his wife, again, this is purely anecdotal, but he was so happy because he was able to now go take his dogs for a walk. And as you get older, it's those little things that mean so much to you. And for him, this was a huge improvement in his quality of life, that he was that much more with it, where he could go out and be responsible and know that everything would be fine, and of course for his wife as well. Functional outcomes, that's what we're all about. Some of the best, biggest pro sports teams in the world have been using our lasers for years. The last 5 Stanley Cup champions, basketball, football, soccer. And now I'd like to bring on Dr. Ernesto Leal, who's been heading up this research for us. Dr. Leal has a wonderful department down at the University in Brazil, and I'll turn it over to him now.